So it's a random search is, let's put on blindfolds and let's, without any sensory perception at all, find a nickel that I left in the Sahara Desert. That's going to take a long time. But if I say you're getting hot or you're getting colder, that can radically reduce the time of the search. Now, we use these things for cases where we don't really know what the answer is. So we have a half an idea of what it would look like if you're getting closer to the answer, so you can write this fitness function. The fitness function is an example of intelligence in action. That's where the intelligence is input into the program. And the better you want that thing to work, the more information you want to produce, the better you better fine-tune your fitness function, or the more complex your fitness function becomes. So what we've actually found when we're writing software like this is that genetic algorithms have turned out to be examples of intelligent design in action. They don't mimic nature. In fact, my professor, who again strongly disagrees with this idea that intelligence is required for biological life, but he's a computer scientist. But at the same time strongly disagrees with that, says genetic algorithms, if we actually write them with a fitness function that's realistic, that models nature, they don't do anything. We need to be very careful when we're writing them. So there's two ways you can test it. It seems to stand so far, but like with any scientific hypothesis, you don't prove it. You just test it, and if it survives, it lives to see another day. And what I'm suggesting here is that hypothesis I put up, that functional information's unique property of intelligence, has still stood, and I think it will stand. If that is the case, we have a scientific method to test for whether or not intelligence was required. We have fingerprints, we have a marker for intelligence in the form of this, and it's all over organic life. This, by the way, is a molecular machine. It ratchets DNA into the protein capsule of certain viruses. The problem was, how does it get all its DNA packed in there? I remember back when I was in genetics wondering that very question. And then we discovered there's actually a little machine that ratchets it in, and when this machine's in action, you can pack DNA in very tightly. Finally, what is the relationship between God and science? What is that? I just want to look at a couple of things here. Number one, and I'm just giving you my perspective, how I work it out, okay? So I'm only speaking for myself here. We're only hearing from one scientist. I don't speak for all scientists here. Not even all scientists that actually agree with the same general conclusions I've put up here. How I work it out as a science philosopher. Number one, nature is a complex system. And as I argued earlier, it's created by God. Nature has its origin in the supernatural. Science, on the other hand, because God created laws of nature that govern how space, time, matter, and energy interact, we can have science. So science is founded on nature, nature is founded on God. That's how I put the relationship. And science is our tool to figure out how nature works. I've heard a lot of people say, hey, you're going to say God created the cosmos, that ends all science right there. And I'm just scratching my head. Why would it end all science? I mean, we have laws of nature here, and as soon as we got that, we can now figure out how the cosmos work. That's the job of science. That's what we've been doing all along. But I'm suggesting here that nature is more than just an entertaining puzzle. If the universe has been designed to support life, like when you design something, you usually have some point as to why you designed it. If that is the case, then maybe there is a point to life after all. Maybe there's a point. There's a purpose for our existence. If the whole universe was fine-tuned to be able to support life. Could it be, okay, this is the philosopher, I'm going to close more on the philosophical aspect of things because I think the best combination, I used to not agree with this, but when I was in physics and engineering, I used to think that philosophers, lock them up in a straitjacket, put them in an institution, these are the guys that worry about whether the door exists. Well, I learned, I actually took a course in philosophy and became fascinated with some of the power behind it, especially in logic and argumentation, and so I think it's actually a good combination, philosophy and science, if you get the opportunity to combine those. But could it be that our deepest, most powerful cravings of humanity are actually connected to that purpose? So as a philosopher, what is the purpose for life? Could it be that there are universal cravings? Many people suggest that there are at least certain universal cravings that appear to be common to all people. The craving for example, identity. This craving to be known and remembered. That's what I mean by identity. There was a little boy who was dying, written up in, I think, Toronto, it was called the Toronto Star or something. I was reading it on an airplane, can't remember the name of the article, but he died about age 12, and it said before he died, shortly before he died, he expressed the worry that people would forget that he had ever been. And I read that, and as a philosopher, I thought, now that is interesting. He wants to be known and remembered, not just in this life, but he wants to be known and remembered for a long time. And basically, it seems that we have this almost irrational, bizarre desire to be known and remembered forever, as irrational as that seems. There's another fundamental human craving that may actually point towards the purpose, and that is this craving for significance. That is, the craving to feel that somehow you were worth something. You weren't just a bag of meat, making it through this life to die and be buried. There was some point that you did something that was worthwhile, and you see this all the time, people having this craving to do something worthwhile. I was listening to some movie actress, can't remember who it was, that was doing something, it was Sarah McLachlan, and she put on, I think, a conference, Lilith Fair, that was it, and she was being interviewed why she did that, and she wanted to do something that would be valuable to more people, that she wanted to make a contribution. We see this all the time. The third thing, though, that I think is probably, I would argue, at least I suggest, is probably the most powerful fundamental craving at all, is the craving to love and be loved. Why do I say that? I'm not just talking about the romantic stuff you see I'm not talking about the real love you see in Hollywood movies. I'm talking about, well, the kind of love that's suggested sometimes. Let's say Sam had for Frodo, that completely noble, self-sacrificing. We look at stuff like that and say, man, that is impressive. Like, I wish I was that kind of person. You look at our songs. You look at the songs. I've worked in many different countries in the world, and their music, and sometimes I have a limited, I can speak some of their languages, a reasonable amount. There is a very common theme, and that is the theme of love, not just between a man and a woman, but love for your country, love for your villages. There's this idea of love. So what if these fundamental cravings are actually the call of God within us? And what if, you see, a number of years ago I stood by the grave of one of my best friends. I had two best friends when I grew up, and one died, and I stood by his grave. And it's when you do that you realize that when you look to people to satisfy these cravings, when they die, you got a problem. What if the one who is the origin of love, what if there is a being who is the origin of love, the origin of justice, of beauty, of song, of every good thing and every perfect gift, what if such a being exists who is the origin of the cosmos itself? And that is why I think so many people are attracted to nature, because they see something there that does something for them. The Bible says that God's invisible attributes, eternal power, and divine nature can be clearly seen through what He's made. So we kind of sense God through nature. But there's a problem. If God is the one who satisfies our deepest cravings, who's the point to all of this, why is it that He seems so far away, and how did I work that out? Could it be that the things that we do that are wrong actually create a problem with the one who is the origin of justice, the purity, the beauty? Like when we compare ourselves with ourselves, we're probably not all that bad. But when we compare ourselves with the one who is beauty personified, how do we stack up? What about not just things we did, but the things that we should have done but did not do? What if that has created a massive gulf between us and God, who is the origin of beauty and justice? But what if this being became a human being to satisfy the demands of perfect justice so that the demands of perfect love could then be carried out, and thus our deepest cravings fulfilled? That's how I have looked at this as both a scientist and a philosopher, that there is a God who actually became a human being, and I'm talking about Jesus Christ here, and the whole point was to satisfy the demands of flawless justice so the demands of infinite love could be carried out. And And the final decision is up to us whether we want that or not. I think, yeah, I'll just close with this quote. It's my last slide here. Jesus, who claimed to be God, said, "See, I stand at the door to your life. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I'll come in and will dine with you and you with me." So that big question I want to leave you with for long-term thinking is, do I want to open that door? The creator of the cosmos is knocking at the door. The one who is the origin of beauty and justice, the door to your heart. But he has given you free will. Love is impossible without freedom of choice. You've got to decide whether you want that or not. But if you do, all you need to do is open that door, ask Christ to come into your life, to take away the wrongdoings, the results, the consequences of that, to separate you from God and sin, in other words, and give you eternal life and that personal relationship with the one who is the